I'm going to discuss the different types of unemployment. I'm not going to define them formally because you have formal definitions in your textbook, I'm assuming. Uh, but having said that, it pays to do a fairly informal discussion of the different types of unemployment, just so you can wrap your head around it a little bit better. The first type of unemployment I'll talk about is frictional unemployment. And frictional unemployment simply is unemployment because you want to be unemployed. You want to be unemployed. And I know that sounds odd. Nobody really wants to be unemployed. But if you think about it deeply enough, some people do. Let me give you for instance. You think that your boss is a jerk, and so you quit. You're employable. Your skill set says you're employable. You have different skills that you've acquired that are marketable, and you simply go find another job. But until you find that other job, you are considered frictionally unemployed. Um, you leave college. You have a marketable skill set. Until you find a job, you are considered frictionally unemployed. So, in both cases, believe it or not, you are employed because you want to be. It is a personal choice. The second type of unemployment is structural. Okay, now one thing we have to remember is that frictional unemployment is going to happen. People are going to be moving from job to job to job to job, and and nationwide, it's going to stay fairly constant. That level of unemployment. You're really not going to see any real movement over time in the frictional unemployment rate because, again, it is going to be a fairly steady flow in and out of jobs nationwide relative to the labor force. Structural unemployment is unemployed due to a change in technology. Okay, so a change in technology, for instance, you work on an assembly line and the assembly line becomes automated. You lose your job. You are therefore structurally unemployed. You are an accountant, and a new accounting policies have made your old skills obsolete. And there's a bunch of young college people coming out that have the all of the new knowledge in accounting that's required. They're cheaper to hire, and because you don't have that new knowledge and it's costly to retrain you and teach you that new knowledge, your firm fires you, structurally unemploys you, and employs new people. You are an engineer and you are trained in one type of software in designing buildings. And that software becomes obsolete and you're not trained in any other type of software, but many other people are. You get fired, other people get hired because of that change in technology. Changing technology tends to occur in a fairly constant fashion. In other words, with the exception of, say, the invention of the computer and the personal computer specifically in the early 90s, technology really has it technology changes over time, but it changes at a fairly constant rate. And therefore, Structural unemployment tends to also be fairly constant. The number of structurally employed relative to the labor force tends to stay fairly constant over time. Then there's cyclical unemployment. And cyclical unemployment is simply change in unemployment due to the business cycle. Okay, so you have the economy, it trends upwards. You have this the economy in the short run. In the long run, it trends upward at a fairly constant rate, but in the short run, it fluctuates around that trend. When the economy starts to contract, okay, unemployment rates rise, and the frictional and structural unemployment rates aren't changing. What is actually rising when the unemployment rate rises is the cyclical part of unemployment. So if you look at the entire unemployment rate, okay, as calculated in previous videos, it includes the frictional unemployment rate plus the structural unemployment rate plus the cyclical unemployment rate. And typically when the unemployment rate changes from month to month, it is actually being driven by the cyclical unemployment rate for the most part. Lastly, we have the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, and the natural rate of unemployment is frictional plus structural. Okay, frictional plus structural. Can't see that very well, I understand. And I can't write very well, so frictional plus structural. The natural unemployment rate is the unemployment rate that is typically established when the economy is on its long-run trend. So at this point here, at this point here, at this point here, that is when all resources are fully employed and there is no cyclical unemployment whatsoever. Okay, so cyclical unemployment is zero. In the United States, we tend to think that the natural rate of unemployment is somewhere around 5.25%. That means if the current unemployment rate is above 5.25%, say it's at 7%, then cyclical unemployment is 1.75%. If the current unemployment rate is currently 5%, that means cyclical unemployment rate is actually a negative 0.25%. Okay, I know that sounds odd, but that's the way it is. If you are below this, if you are above this trend, okay, the unemployment rate is going to be below the natural rate. If you are below this trend in the economy, in other words, if the business cycle is below potential, then the unemployment rate is going to be above the natural rate. And so those are the types of unemployment in a nutshell.